Around 20 years ago, my grandmother Olga sat down at her computer and wrote her story. Thinking that the computer was a typewriter, every day she wrote, she printed, with no page numbers. So by the end, she had a massive pile of paper all stacked up and put into a box. Last year, my mom Erika had it put in order and translated from Hungarian to English. Since my grandmother passed away in 2017, we didn't have the opportunity to have her record her story. So I have. I will also be weaving a parallel journey of my grandmother's life with my mom's life and mine, as we travel into the past, learn about my grandmother, and learn about ourselves at the same time. The journey begins. Olga, Erika, and me. Part 1. What a dirty lie. My life has not been a straightforward line. It has been more like a rough road full of bumps. When you go back to your past in your dreams and walk down the familiar streets in the familiar neighborhood and find your parents' house, you know that you are home. You have arrived at the most beautiful, most wonderful place on earth, the only place where you are always surrounded by love. Years have gone by, and I feel guilty for failing the task of memorializing my loved ones to ensure that my daughter and granddaughter will remember them forever. It was only at the insistence of my dear granddaughter that I finally decided to write down all that had happened to us. She said that I owed this to the memory of my loved ones, and it was my duty to tell future generations what had happened to my family and me from the beginning of the 1930s to the end of the Second World War in mid-May 1945. So, here am I, writing this story in memory of my dear parents and siblings who I will love and cherish forever, whose memory will always fill me with pain and whose loss I will never stop mourning. I am writing this story for my dear Erika and my dear granddaughter, Ilanit-Michele, so that they can get to know my loved ones that I lost under such tragic circumstances. This is what I bestow on them to remember by.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Just have trouble sleeping at nights and I have nightmares.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it's not your fault. So tell me what this is about.
I am recording this, by the way, okay?
Okay.
I was wondering if you'd be interested in doing an audio version of Gamama's memoir. You and I discussing it, and you can, elaborate on it.
Yeah.
And even if we went to Hungary and we went to where she grew up or where she ended up afterwards.
That's going to be very hard. Nothing is left.
But you never know. Even to be walking on the same road that she might have been walking on all those years ago, I think would be really quite powerful. Just you and me.
Okay.
And I think that's what Gamama would want.
Well, there are some lovely spots. There's some lovely stories. There's some lovely memories. Hungary before the Holocaust was just wonderful. It was a great place. The way she describes it sounds really great. I'm so glad you're doing something like this.
After some convincing, I managed to get my mother to fly over from Montreal to London, where I live.
Nice to see you too. Oh. And look, what is that? Microphone.
Are you seriously taping me?
Yes, all the time.
I feel very guilty, of course, that I did not read this while she was alive because I have so many questions. At one point, she was losing her memory, and she said, "How did my parents die?" And I thought to myself, this is an angel coming and erasing her memory, because she said, "How did my parents die?" I said, "They died a nice, peaceful death." What are you going to say, right? Then one day, one of the last times I saw her, I arrived and tears were coming down her face. And I said, "Why are you crying?" She says, "Because my mother is dead." I said, "Well, it's natural that your mother is dead. I mean, she's much older than you, and she would be 140, she'd be old." I said, "You will leave me one day. you will die one day and leave me. Never. And I swear she meant it. She was very adamant.
I think I will start by telling you where I was born and where we lived. My siblings and I were born in Hajdúhadház, Hungary. My father, his mother were also born here. My dearest mother, Rosa, was born in Serep in Bihar County. My dearest father was called Lajos Berkovits. My paternal grandmother was a very proud woman who never complained. She was only 13 years old when her uncle married her off because she was an orphan. My grandfather died suddenly at the age of 36, and we never learnt if he'd had any siblings. My grandmother was widowed with 6 children when she was only 27 years old. She took my father out of school after 4th grade and sent him to trade school. He was barely 12 years old when he learned how to repair umbrellas and could support his mother. My father would do the repairs after work, and his mother was paid not in cash but in flour, live chicken, eggs, potatoes, or vegetables. My father was apprenticed to a carpenter, and when he finished his apprenticeship, he asked his mother to let him stay with a relative in a bigger city to learn cabinet making. His teachers in the trade school had praised his drawing skills, and this gave him the idea to learn cabinet making. He continued his apprenticeship as a cabinet maker in that town, and he became independent at the age of 18. Within a short time, he made a name for himself, and people came from faraway cities to order furniture or doors and windows. My father was very handsome, tall, and blonde with blue eyes. Mother was much shorter. She had brown hair and brown eyes. She had a beautiful figure even after giving birth to 6 children. I have 5 siblings, 2 girls, Ilona and Cornelia, and 3 boys, Bela, Jenny, and Ernu. Bela and Jenny were twins. They were born within 15 minutes of each other, Bela first, then Jenny. They always got on well together. Ilona, Ilush, was the firstborn, and she had a special place in our hearts. We younger siblings all looked up to her. She never raised her voice, even when we were loud or quarreling.
For me, it's bringing people that I didn't know about back to life. Because when I first read it, I was like, okay, I kind of know some of this. And then some of it became very new to me. And I have to say, as I was recording it in Pat's studio, I suddenly felt very connected. You know, even Pat went, I can hear your grandmother's voice.
Yes, you can.
You know, she's talking from the grave to us, telling us what happened. She could never tell me chronologically what happened, so I was always so confused whenever she would tell me.
Me too, it was bits and pieces.
I couldn't get the story in my head. It all felt like these little bits of memory coming out, and they meant nothing to me because I had no reference. And now I have reference.
Our parents taught us to strive for beauty and goodness and to show respect for humanity. Sadly, all is gone. All joy and hope is gone. Like in a cruel dream, you wake up to find that everything was taken from you. You are alone, you have nothing, and no one. All that's left are your painful memories. But as painful as they may be, you are still clinging on to them because this is all you have left, and this no one can take from you. You know how rich you can be. You just have to close your eyes and allow your imagination to take you back to your childhood, to your dear parents' home, to their embracing arms. You will feel tears running down your face, and you will feel a little relieved. Your heart will grow a little lighter, and you will feel you can talk. You are not alone anymore. You will try to remember only the good things. Your thoughts will be racing as you picture your loved ones who are so dear to you, and now you are smiling. You are asking yourself, do you remember? Do you remember how beautiful it was?
There were so many times I wish I'd recorded conversations with you, me, and Gamma during arguments.
It would have been wonderful.
Oh my God, I mean, some of the
It's like
things
a
that
play.
would come out of her mouth.
No. She was like a Ibsen play.
She was so creative with her words, even in English.
I know.
She was amazing, so dramatic, always so dramatic.
Well, you could see she was a writer in her head all the time.
She read so many books and loved stories, and that's what kept her sane.
Well, even in the concentration camp, she remembered the books that she read. Could you imagine? I mean, I don't remember anything I'm reading. I read a book and it's gone. Like that. Oh, she was just so...
I loved my mother dearly. She taught me that a book is your best friend. I always took a book with me to bed. Sometimes I wouldn't sleep all night because I had to give the book back in the morning. These books and films helped me to keep my sanity when I was in hell and tried to keep my head above the water. When I was a girl, I would watch my mother when she was cooking and baking. I only learnt cooking in theory because I was the third girl in the family, and she didn't need my help. I learnt it in theory well, though, and when I started practicing the art of cooking, I was as good a cook and baker as my mother. It has always pained me that she never had the chance to taste my cooking. I had been looking forward to the time when I would welcome my parents and my brothers and sisters in my own home, but this was not to be. Life robbed me of all my dreams, dreams that it could have become reality, but for the cruelty of fate.
In 1970, I was pregnant with you, and we ended up in Budapest, Hungary, middle of communism.
How they let you out again?
I know.
Were you scared?
We went by train into Budapest, and my mother and I, they came to check our passports. You know, it's just the sound of them saying passport in Hungarian is enough to creep me out.
It's going to happen tomorrow.
I know.
Erika Fish, where have you been all these years? Finally, we have you back.
Isten hozta.
What does that mean?
That's an expression in Hungary. I better learn this. Isten is God.
Yeah.
Hozta means God had brought you.
He's bringing you back tomorrow.
So whenever you cross the border and they ask you for your passport, my mother and I got the willies. We stayed in this hotel called Szabadság, which means freedom. And my mother said, watch what you say, it's all bugged. Nice, eh? How old was I? 22?
Was that when you were pregnant with me? And she was?
She was your age.
She was my age and you were pregnant with me.
No, isn't it something, isn't it? Do you hear what we arranged? Somebody going to meet us.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Did you ever go back to Hajdúhadház?
I've never been there.
Never? And you were only 15 minutes away.
Never
Isn't that
been.
interesting?
I never been there. Isn't that funny that she never took me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about going back to Hungary?
Not good.
No.
My parents did so much to get away.
It's weird, isn't it?
To me, it's, yeah, we left everything. Closed the door, left everything. So it feels like redundant, like, why are you doing this?
Really?
I'm doing it for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I swear.
Well, I've always wanted to go. I hope you don't feel like you're wasting your time.
I'm not wasting my time, I'm doing it for you. Because I never had any curiosity. My mother, too, never had any curiosity on that. It was too painful. I shed everything. I became Swedish, became Canadian.
Yeah.
It's such a not part of me. I divorced myself from it, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
I think it's going to be interesting listening to you speak in Hungarian.
I can do that anytime.
No, I know, but like in Hungary. There's just something about it. It's like we're going to your world.
It's sad to be able to go back to Hungary and there's nobody there. There is nobody waiting for us. There's nobody to visit. They're all gone.
As I mentioned earlier, our house was on the main street. A long picket fence separated our lot from the neighbors, a wealthy farmer who was a widow and who hated Jews. His son was the postmaster in Nagykáló, and he had 2 children, an 8-year-old girl and a 6-year-old boy. His daughter, Zsuzsi, lived with him. The children used to come to see their grandfather, and Auntie Zsuzsi and we often played with them. They had a huge courtyard where there were many places to play hide and seek. One day, Auntie Zsuzsi told us to hide under her niece's bed and keep very quiet because a Polish Jew was coming with a big bag to collect all the naughty kids. We were very frightened. After a while, she told us that we could return to the courtyard and continue playing. When we went home, my mother immediately saw that something was amiss. She sat us down and asked what had happened. We asked her what a Polish Jew looked like. She said we didn't have to be afraid of anybody. All people were equal. The next time she met Auntie Zuzi at the fence, she told her never to scare her children again. Zuzi said that it was her father who would threaten children with the police and the Polish Jew. I don't care, said my dear mother, who your father uses to scare his children, but I teach my children to respect everybody. I wouldn't like this to happen again. We have always had a good relationship, and I hope to keep it this way. They were really good friends. When Mother baked something, she always gave some to Zuzi over the fence.
What are you hoping to find in Hajdúhadház in Hajdúhadház? What's the name? I can't say it.
Hajdúhadház.
Hajdúhadház.
Hajdú.
Hajdú. Hajdú.
Has. Hajdú. We could just say Bussermeen. You don't have to say Hajdú.
Bussermeen.
Bussermeen. Bussermeen.
Bussermeen.
One word. Bussermeen. Exactly.
Okay.
Hajdúhadház, I hope to find my grandfather's furniture. I know that's impossible.
That is impossible.
They have antique stores.
I don't think there are. I mean, I'd be really surprised.
Could you imagine if I just found something and then you say, how am I going to have it transported to Canada?
You're dreaming.
No.
Okay, so we're now in Hajdúhadház. And we are now outside where my grandmother's house would have been. At the moment, there's this yellow house with shutters and a steel fence. Unfortunately, the weather's not great.
It looks like nobody lives there.
Yeah, it looks like it hasn't been taken care of in years.
It looks abandoned.
Our house was on the main street. It used to belong to my grandmother, who had another house as well. When my father became an independent cabinet maker with an extensive clientele, he bought the house from his mother and set up his workshop in it. The house was a 35-meter-long building with a red-tiled roof. We had 4 bedrooms, a large living room, and a long pantry where we kept all kinds of canned fruit for the winter. The kitchen, which was in a separate building, had a huge double door and floor-to-ceiling windows. It was equipped with everything we needed for cooking and baking. Next to it was the pantry and a very nice sunroom. The sunroom had a tiled roof and was covered with grapevines on all sides. During Sukkot, we used to take off part of the roof and decorate the interior beautifully. The whole family could comfortably fit around the large extended table of the sunroom. In front of the sunroom, there was a flower garden, and beyond that, Father planted a vegetable garden. There were fruit trees and a well water pump there as well. He used to get up before 4 in the morning every day to work in the garden. Before going out, he made himself a strong coffee, rolled a cigarette from a mix of tobacco from Turkey and the Balkans, and he would smoke it, following the smoke with his eyes.
It was a corner house. They had vineyards. My great-grandfather had a tavern.
A tavern?
Yeah, and he had, you didn't know that?
No. Because she does talk about having grapes and all that, making their own
Yeah, but
wine.
they also had a tavern.
We had a cellar under the house. We kept the firewood there, and in a corner there was a pile of yellow sand, where we buried the root vegetables, carrots, celery root, onions, and potatoes. We also had a barrel with pickled cabbage in it. In a large built-in cupboard, we kept large jars of jams, compotes, and pickles. My mother was very proud of all the food she put away for the winter because canning and preserving was hard work. When I was older, I used to preserve just like my mother. It was a lot of work to prepare food for a large family. We had to feed 11 people every day. There was a third building on the property that had been used as a cow barn, but when we were children, our maid lived there. When we were older, my parents stored tools and empty barrels in it. We also had a 30-meter-long corn silo in the courtyard, and at the end of the yard, an ice pit that we rented out to the butcher. The courtyard was quite narrow, but the wagons bringing the planks of the workshop could fit through the gate and turn around in the yard. We owned an acre of land on the other side of the train tracks where we had a vineyard with several varieties of grapes from which we made wine. We kept 400 liters of wine in large barrels at home in the cellar. There were also several fruit trees and 3 enormous walnut trees on our land. We had a little house on it where we kept tools and deck chairs. Father looked after grapes in the trees with some helpers, and the family often went there on Sundays. Mother used to prepare lunch at home and heat it up in a cauldron in the vineyard. We loved these lunches. They were always very tasty. We sang a lot and had a great time. In the autumn, we harvested the grapes and put them in the attic on large reed trays or hung them up on special strings. They lasted the whole winter. We stored the walnuts up in the attic and the apples down in the house on top of the wardrobes, which made the whole house smell nice. There are 4 seasons in Hungary, each one beautiful, bringing joy to adults and children alike. Spring always came very early. We loved spring. When the snow melted, the soil dried up and everything turned green. On Saturdays and Sundays, we often went to the woods to pick violets and lily of the valley. The flowers smelled wonderful, and we would always take a bouquet home to Mother. We felt at peace as we were walking in the woods. We never knew fear as children, and were not afraid to go deep into the forest on our own. We went home happy with rosy cheeks. I often reminisce about our wonderful excursions and about those happy years when we were all together. It all ended abruptly when we were still young. Everything was taken from us.
Didn't Gamama's grandmother own a house on the corner? I think that was her house.
Yeah.
And he owned the rest of the land, her dad. I think they owned all of this.
Jutka says it was a big iron gate, so...
An abandoned house on the corner, which is where we reckon my grandmother's grandmother would have lived. And this is the iron gate, but I don't think this is the original gate. I mean, you can almost think they would have owned a lot of that land back there. And I think here, coming up, is the fence that I suspect was the fence between the neighbor and my grandmother's family's home. You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
They were on the main street.
Well, this is the house.
Come, let's go find some coffee, because we're going to go down that way afterwards.
Mother made sure that our daily life ran smoothly from morning to night. In the morning, all of us, 6 children and 3 or 4 adults, had to get ready to leave on time. By the time we got dressed, she had set the table for breakfast and packed and put our lunches into our school bags. She then kissed us goodbye, and off we went to school. We attended a co-ed public school with students of different religion. We all had the same classes except for religious education. Each denomination had their own religion class on a different day. Most of the town's inhabitants were Calvinists. There were not many Catholics, and they only had a small church. The Jewish community was quite large, and we had a simple but beautiful synagogue. We never experienced any discrimination as Jews in school. Boys on the street would sometimes throw stones at us, but we never had any problems in the school. We liked going to school, and we were friends with our classmates. School years were the best years of our lives. Then everything changed. After standing there looking at the house, Mom and I stopped quickly for a quick bite to eat at this beautiful little cafe serving typical Hungarian pastries and coffee. We head over to the town square where we meet 2 Katis, an older Kati and a younger Kati, who we had arranged to meet with. The younger Kati works for the town hall, and the older Kati is a lady who helps out around the town, who is a historian and educator. And they spend the day with us, telling us stories about the town and how the Jewish people and everyone else live together harmoniously.
I can just assure you that they had deep respect for each other before the war. They shared the news of who was getting married and who died, and all the good news and all the bad news. It didn't matter whether you were Jewish or not Jewish. It just appeared in the same paper, and they had pictures of the weddings and etc.
Ki az, aki házasságra akar lépni? Voltak különböző rendezvények is, ott volt.
What she's saying is this was this horrible world that came upon us, and there's nothing we can do about it. And it is unbelievable what happened.
My sister Ilush got married in 1939. She and her husband lived in Debrecen, about 20 kilometers from us. My brother-in-law was very funny, and we all liked him. In 1941, Ilush was to have her first baby, but she couldn't give birth to her child. We had all been looking forward to the first grandchild of the family, and I felt very sorry for my sister for all the suffering she had to endure. In 1942, the government introduced a series of anti-Jewish laws, and each law made our life more difficult. We couldn't receive any letters, and the newspapers didn't report on what was really happening. My brother-in-law was drafted into forced labor in 1942. I moved in with Ilush to attend a sewing class in a well-known salon. I already knew how to sew, but I didn't want my sister to be alone. I stayed with her 3 days a week, and she came home to our parents every weekend. She didn't want to move out of their apartment because she was hoping that one day her husband would come home, or at least send letters, but few letters ever came. He did come home once before his platoon was deployed to a new location. After that, he rarely sent news of himself, and we never knew where he was. Ilush was already 3 months pregnant when she told us that she was expecting another child. Our parents were overjoyed. We all hugged Ilush, who started crying because she couldn't let her husband know the good news. My sister Nellie got married in 1941. Her husband had served in the cavalry for 3 years before their marriage. He had a beautiful voice, and his captain always gave him furlough to train his voice. He was still in the army when he applied to the Opera House and was told to return for an audition once he was demobilized. A few weeks after demobilizing in 1941, they told him what day to go to the Opera House. He was overjoyed to see his dream come true. The other singers were looking forward to getting to know him, and one of them said jokingly that even though he was hired, they would like to hear him sing before he signed the contract. They congratulated him and drank to his health and then gave him the contract to sign. He signed his name, Sándor Glickman. "We are sorry. It must be a mistake. We couldn't have heard your name clearly when you came to see us," they said. "No, there can be no misunderstanding. I have always told my name very clearly. I am used to enunciating well because of the army." "You are Jewish?" "Yes, I am." "We are very sorry, but we cannot hire a Jew in the Opera House." It was a hard blow. He and Nellie were in love, and they had been waiting for 4 years to get married. They married in March, but their happiness only lasted for 14 months. He was drafted into the cavalry again, in civilian clothes this time. He was such a nice person, and we all loved him very much. He was very short-sighted, and on several occasions he sent fellow soldiers to his wife to bring him glasses, warm clothes, and boots. Then one day we got a notice that he had been killed. When 2 of his friends returned in 1945, they told my sister that he had already been in a bad state of mind when they were crossing the Hungarian-Ukrainian border and was telling his friends that he couldn't take it anymore and wanted to go home. One day, he was transporting officers in a horse carriage. His glasses were broken, and whether wittingly or unwittingly we will never know, he drove the carriage over a landmine.
Nekem ez érthetetlen, de nem könnyű ezt feldolgozni, különösen egy olyan helyzetben,
She said
hogy
even when you're losing somebody in sickness, but to lose them like this is just incredible.
Meg balesetben, de az, hogy
To make a whole group of people disappear is beyond words.
legyen, tehát a zsidók,
It's not by accident that the Jews are chosen to suffer like this.
ők még ezt is túlélték. És akik utána maradunk, én ez a hitvallásom, hogy akkor mutassuk meg, hogy nem sok, ami maradt, de próbáljuk.
I actually give lectures about what had happened.
És mindig belecsempészek egy kicsit.
You should keep this. This is very, very important and very nice what she's saying.
Most például házasság.
She said that people used to give dowry. When a woman got married, they had to have a dowry.
Mert nem lett volna, ha
So many times even poor got married and they didn't have that, then everybody got together and they gave a couple of geese as a dowry.
hát azért ezek nagy.
She's saying that she talks a lot about the life in the village of Hajdúhadház, how the Jews contributed. And she talks about something she likes to add in of all the good things the Jews did for this city. And I said to her, bless you for this.
My sister Ilush had to go back to her lonely home and to all the uncertainties with her 15-month-old baby. We didn't have a phone, and I couldn't go and see her, as Jews weren't allowed to travel anymore. After a few weeks, we heard some rumors that we would be relocated. Later, we heard that they would take us somewhere to work. One afternoon, I told my parents that I was going to go to beg His Excellency, the noble magistrate, not to displace the Jews of Hajdúhadház. I even made a drawing to show where the ghetto in our town should be. He wasn't at home, but his wife welcomed me very kindly. She told me that her husband would soon be back from Debrecen. She took me to the cool reception room, told the maid to bring me a drink, and His Excellency arrived soon after. She introduced me to him. "This girl is Mr. Berkowitz's daughter." She turned to leave the room, but I asked her to stay, so she sat down. I explained that I wanted their help. They saw how nervous I was, and His Excellency got up and took my hand. "Don't be afraid. Tell me what's bothering you and how I can help." I told him that they wanted to move the Jews of Hajdúhadház somewhere, but if we closed off 3 streets and set up the ghetto there, we wouldn't have to leave. I showed him my drawing. He kindly reassured me. "Don't fear anything. Your father is a fine man, and I promise that if I have a say in it, the Jews of Hajdúhadház will not be relocated. You have my word." They set up the ghetto following my drawing. I never told anyone that I had arranged it all. When the ghetto was established, everyone had to move in. We only moved on the last day when they changed the perimeter of the ghetto, and it turned out that our house was now outside the ghetto. Our wealthy neighbor, who was a Jew hater, made sure that the perimeter was changed and we couldn't stay in our house. We left everything in the house and took only the essentials to the ghetto. We moved a day before Shavuot on a Friday afternoon. My mother had had the walls of the 2 rooms whitewashed before we moved. The building had served as an office before, and next to it there was a stable. The gendarmerie put up some men in there to guard the Jews and make sure no one sneaked out of the ghetto. In the ghetto, we were joined by my grandmother, Auntie Peppy, and her daughter Dori. We stayed in the ghetto for about 5 weeks. We didn't know what was going to happen to us, and we had no word from Ilush and her little son Jurika since Pesach. Various rumors were going around. Girls who entered into a long-distance marriage would not be deported. Girls were taken away for work, but no one knew where. We had a hen, and one day, as she was scratching, she went under the fence. She was a silly hen. She didn't know anti-Jewish laws. She didn't know she had no right to walk on Christian soil. I was looking through the wooden fence and saw that some hens were pinching her head. I asked one of the gendarmes to come with me and bring back my hen who fled from the ghetto. "How do you know it's your hen?" he asked. I showed him the other hens who were pinching her head. He was given permission to accompany me, and we went out of the ghetto. The young gendarme told me that his parents were farmers. They had a big farm, and he would like to save me. He'd already talked to his parents, and they were ready to help. "You don't look Jewish. You could hide until the end of the war." "Thank you very much," I said. "But would you take my parents too? You have seen them. They don't look Jewish either." "It would be too dangerous to hide 3 people," he replied. "Thank you, but we prefer to stay together whatever happens." When I recounted this conversation to my parents, they hugged me tight.
I told a story to Kathy, the older Kathy. There was a man who wanted to rescue my mother. And she said, "Do you know his name?" She said, "Because he should be part of the Yad Vashem, just the fact that he was suggesting to rescue her." And I said, "No, she didn't give us the name." But it's a miracle you and I are here. I don't think I realized how much miracle it is that you and I are here.
One Saturday afternoon, they told all the girls to get in line. With one gendarme the head of the line and another at the tail, 25 of us marched out of the ghetto and along the street singing. My heart went out to all the poor parents left behind in the ghetto, expecting the worst. We arrived at a large building and were ordered to clean every room and toilet, except for the windows, which were high up. Young cadets lived here, so we all agreed not to utter a single word while we worked. We worked without a break and cleaned everything beautifully. When we finished, it was getting dark. One of the gendarmes said we had done a good job and we could return to the ghetto. Shabbat had ended, and all the inhabitants of the ghetto were waiting anxiously for our return. Our poor mothers were crying. They couldn't believe that the gendarme only took us to clean.
After a long but very interesting day learning about the history of Hajdúhadház, we followed the younger Kati by car to a Hungarian army reserve 2 miles from the town center.
They took them all the way out here?
It's nowhere near the center of the town. Just remember she had to go back to the synagogue to pick stuff up. Oh wow, here it is. This is it. So it's an army barrack.
So a few meters and we can see this is a barrack there. These are barak épületek.
Ja, de mostan szépek. Nem hiszem, hogy ilyen szép volt akkor.
Hasonlóan néztek ki. Nagyon hasonlítottak.
It said they looked very much like this.
Szinte teljesen úgy néznek ki. Majd küldök fényképet a barakról.
És ottan.
Az is ugyanilyenek, csak ugye messzebb vannak és nehezebb látni. És ide hozták őket ilyen kényszermunkára, ez a láger.
És itt mit csináltak?
Építették ezeket az épületeket, ők építették fel.
They are the ones who built these buildings.
Who are?
The Jews.
Igen.
And they've been here since?
Yeah, pretty much.
Gosh.
Yeah, this was pretty chilling. I wonder if those soldiers know that it was built by Jews that were taken away, never came back.
On a Tuesday in the second half of June, they ordered all of us to the courtyard of the synagogue. One of the Jewish elders told us to go home, gather all the food we had, as well as some blankets and clothes, nothing too heavy, and come back in the early afternoon. When we returned to the synagogue, we were marched to the railway station. We were loaded onto a train and taken to a brickyard not far from Debrecen.
Facebookon találtam meg, vagy
She says 10 years ago on Facebook that somebody had found a book with all the names of the people who lived in Hajdúhadház. And she said, why would somebody sell something like that?
itt volt, mondta, hogy Kati, megveszem, hát mondom, már. Tehát,
A rabbi said, I will buy it, Kati. And she said, it's already sold.
This book from Facebook.
Yeah, it was Jewish Register.
It had a list of all the names of the Jewish people from Hajdúhadház that then got transported away
Yes,
during the Second World War.
yeah.
már nem
She says, there's nothing I can show you.
My father's cousin told us to cut our hair short so we could care for it more easily. I got in line to get my hair cut, but when I stood in front of him, he said to me, I can't cut your hair. Why not? Your hair is so beautiful, I don't have the heart to cut it, he replied. Well, all you need is a good pair of scissors, I retorted. I had beautiful, long, wavy, chestnut-colored hair down to my shoulders, but I didn't feel sorry cutting it. I must have felt that I would lose much more than my hair in what was to come. But never, not even in my worst nightmare, could I have imagined what these monsters had in store for us. When we arrived in the brickyard, my grandmother fainted from the heat and the hunger. I ran to find her old friend, Dr. Seke. I was crying hard and said to him, why couldn't she die at home in peace? The doctor patted my face and told me she wasn't dead and I should make some soup for her. Before we left the ghetto, my mother had made a roux. I sat to work, ignoring the chaos around me. I placed 2 bricks on the ground, boiled water in a little pot, added a pinch of salt and a spoonful of roux. When it was ready, my father sat his mother up and fed her the soup. She regained her strength and reached Auschwitz alive at the age of 85. We only stayed a few days in the brickyard. On Thursday, we were told to pack up all our belongings and start walking. The German guards were shouting at us to hurry up. I had a huge pack on my back containing blankets and pillows. I sneered at him, and he hit me, but cushioned with the blankets and the pillows, I couldn't feel anything. We advanced very slowly because that abominable gendarme kept throwing my grandmother and the old rabbi into the ditch, and my father had to go back every time and pull them out. At one point, we were caught in a heavy shower, and by the time Father pulled his mother out of the ditch, the group had gotten far ahead of us. We could have caught up with them, but Father said that it was God's wish that we remained behind. There was my sister Ilush with Jurika, and Auntie Blanca with Latsi and Yutka. We were afraid to stay with them and get them into trouble, so we returned to the brickyard.
So what happened to them during the war?
They were on a train. Blancanini, Yutka, and her brother.
Yes.
They were on a train going back and forth, back and forth. For some lucky reason, they never reached Auschwitz. There's no food, they were starving.
Where were they living before?
They lived in Debrecen.
Oh, and if Ilona had gone with them?
Ilona would have gone with them, she would have survived. She ended up being killed with her baby.
Friday evening, my father said that we would be moving the belongings of those who had been deported the day before, and maybe we could get a chance to speak with my sister. The gendarme accompanying us was from Hajdúhadház. He was smoking with some other gendarme and offered a cigarette to my father. My father thanked him and said he couldn't accept it as it was Shabbat. I told the gendarme I would like to ask him a favor. My sister's there where we are taking all this stuff. Please, let me call my sister so that I can exchange a few words with her. You are welcome to listen if you want. Okay, he said. I will call her down, but you aren't allowed to go near her. I said to my sister, when they tell us when we will be taken, I will let you know. The following morning, when the men were praying, they were searched. My father felt horrible. I learned the same morning that we would be deported in the afternoon, and I couldn't notify my dear sister. I was running from gendarme to gendarme, but they all said they couldn't help me. I should try to speak with the German officer. Maybe he would allow me to go see my sister. Did I realize I was asking the impossible? That it was supposed to be a secret? I was crying. Why did I have to promise her that I would notify her? I went to the German officer and asked him to allow a gendarme to accompany me and tell her that we were going to be deported that day and she shouldn't wait for us. The German just stared at me and hit my outstretched arm with his truncheon and waved me away. I didn't care about anything after that. I was so naive thinking that I could appeal to the humanity of a German. As soon as the cattle cars left with us, I realized that I was fooling myself and nothing good would happen to us. 75 to 80 people were crammed like sardines into each car, children and old people, men and women, all sitting on the floor. There was a little opening of about 20 centimeters near the door where my parents were sitting. This was the only place where some fresh air could come in. Before leaving, a German came into the cattle car, picked up my father's velvet case containing a talit and tefillin, and threw it out of the wagon. My father had put on talit and tefillin since the age of 13. He had always had them on him, even in the First World War. My father spoke for the first and last time. God in the heavens, how can you let this happen? And he spoke no more. He was sitting between my mother and me in the cattle car, and we were holding his hand. Our train whizzed past beautiful landscapes, and my mother said, when the war is over, we will come and visit here. The train was going non-stop for 3 days and nights, and early on Tuesday morning, it suddenly stopped. We were out of the wagons in no time, and facing us was a sign that read, "Work sets you free." What a dirty lie.